Hey, Com-101 Intro to Mass Media. Mike Eccles back. And, well, it's time to begin the semester. Some of you have already done that with some of your other classes. And it's going to be a little strange because for a lot of you, you've never taken an online class or you don't care for online classes. Um, Guess what? Neither do I. And we're all in a new realm. Going all the way back to the first class I ever taught in 1993, I've never once taught online. And especially a course like this, boy, I really want to be in front of you. I want to be, especially with the rest of this chapter, I just want to be in front of the screen showing you all kinds of great things. Unfortunately, it's a new reality. As a matter of fact, the TV to the side of me here as I'm taping this on a Monday night before you guys either see it tonight or tomorrow morning. I've got the pro wrestling show, Monday Night Raw. They're getting ready to do WrestleMania, which is in a 75 to 80,000 seat stadium, and they're going to do it in a TV studio instead. I mean, this is the new reality of what's been going on lately. So we're going to finish the semester this way, where every week, either Monday night, Tuesday morning, I will post a video. There will also be assignments attached. There will be a quiz this week that's going to be attached. What you have to do is I have questions for you. You then have to go into your textbook, find the answer, and then send the answers to me by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Also, I gave you another week to finish your research papers. Now, 2 people already have handed in their research paper. That's great. But you still have until Sunday night, 11:59 p.m. To get your research paper in. So this is how we're going to do it for the rest of the semester. And we're also going to do everything by email. Some of you do have Moodle shells in your other classes. I've never used Moodle. I kind of got put off when we first adopted Moodle because there were stories, really bad stories of it shutting down. I had one professor tell me he lost all his students' papers that they had handed in because it had crashed. Now, it has gotten good lately in the last couple of years, and we've got great IT people. But even today, I know that Moodle was moving very, very slowly, and they actually had to shut it down for maintenance for a while. And who knows what could have been missed, what could have been lost. You know what? We can just do strictly by email. I think we're going to be okay. So now with the rest of the movies chapter, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these videos that I post on YouTube. God, you don't want to sit here all day and watch me on YouTube. I mean, I know I would rather be doing my favorite thing on YouTube. I just love looking up fan brawls. Drunken fans at sporting events doing stupid things. It's just so funny. I don't know. But yeah, so these will not always be very long. I'm not going to do full lectures on a YouTube video, but just to give you a little bit about the chapter, and then you'll read the rest on your own. But with the movie chapter, for example, the first clip that I have to show you is about the first, what they call full-length motion picture. It was only 11 minutes long, and it was filmed on the prairies of Fort Lee, New Jersey. And that, of course, was the first ever movie, and that was The Great Train Robbery in 1903. And it was done by Thomas Edison, who just absolutely was thrilled when he first realized that someone had started in this thing called moving or motion pictures. He wanted to dive into it because he knew, this is something I've been telling you guys since the beginning of the semester, is that we're very much a visual being. We love to be visually entertained. And what you had now is, up to this point, the only way we could be visually entertained is if we had to go to a theater and people would be on a stage. And of course, if you wanted to go from one scene to another, you would have to close the curtain. The people in the back would have to switch all the props around, and then you open up the curtain again, and then the play continues in what's supposed to be another place. Well, now you have a camera, and when you watch this clip of course, it's the entire film, which is only, again, 11 minutes, of The Great Train Robbery. This was huge to people, that you're watching going from indoors to outdoors, and that you're on a moving train. I mean, this is crazy. Or you got horses and cowboys chasing the bad guys, and it was just something that they just couldn't get enough of. Well, then the next clip I show you is that as movies continued, and of course they were silent in the beginning, one of the first movie superstars was a guy by the name of Charlie Chaplin. And I have the second link I have for you is one of his great first motion pictures, and that was, of course, with Charlie Chaplin as the fireman. And what you see is the craft that they had to be so visual because there was no sound. And the only sound they actually had was, if you know a theater, one of the things they have in front of the stage in a theater is an orchestra pit. So every once in a while, movies would actually come with sheet music, so the orchestra at least wouldn't be out of a job. But otherwise, they couldn't talk, you couldn't see. And what I liked about this one with Charlie Chaplin is what made him a real superstar is he really knew how to be a visual comic, knowing you couldn't, reading lips or not knowing you couldn't hear what they were saying. And he was a true superstar. As a matter of fact, though, he was a perfectionist. And film, which is made of a chemical called celluloid, even today is still very expensive, and even back then it was even more expensive. So, like, movie studios only like to shoot a scene once and that's it. But he knew that he would have to do more than that, so he would actually clash with the studios. And later on, he and a bunch of his superstars got together, and they formed their own studio called United Artists, which put out great movies. It only went out of business, I think, about 10, 11 years ago, United Artists. Was bought out by somebody after, unfortunately, they started, your movie studio, you're only as good as your latest bomb. Okay? So, United Artists went for many decades. But then, of course, in the next clip I show you, was the first talking picture. And that's what the people were clamoring for. They had to have voice. Some of you may have seen this in the one scene in the movie The Aviator with Leo DiCaprio, where he plays the filmmaker Howard Hughes, where Howard Hughes has shot a movie for 2 years and then makes them reshoot it after he goes and watches this movie I'm showing you, which was The Jazz Singer, the first talking picture. He said, this is what the audience wants. And of course, talking pictures is what we still have today. But then the next couple of clips I want to show you have to deal with so the first talking movie was in 1927. 2 years later, in October of 1929, was, of course, the big stock market crash. And we first went into a recession, and then we went into a depression. And what you see coming out of Hollywood now, where movie making has now moved from New Jersey to Los Angeles, is you now see where people are really clamoring for movies. And for the first time, that big darkened theater was a place to escape all the troubles that you had, all your realities. And what's more is, as most, if not all, movies were black and white, in the 1930s, in the depths of the Depression, when people really needed an escape, you saw Hollywood get bigger and better, and boy, it was better, because they made buku bucks, and they were very, very successful and very popular because they really got you to lock away from all the realities in that darkened theater of what was going on in the Depression. Well, then World War II came along, but after World War II, for a brief period, the movies were in their heyday. In 1946, the year after World War II ended, we were selling in America 90 million movie tickets a week. Now, that sounds like a lot, but when you think about it, you sit home, or your parents, you watch TV every day. I mean, even if you guys are, for example, the way I used to kid you guys about, sitting in the hallway and I'm tripping over you as you're between classes, and of course you've got your phone or you've got your tablet or laptop and you got the headphones plugged in. We're typically watching TV at any time, almost every day. Well, if you didn't have televisions at the time, you would go to the movies, and it wasn't abnormal that you would go to a movie theater 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. You would actually come home from work, eat dinner, and then walk about 3 or 4 blocks. And in most cases, you didn't have to walk further than 6 blocks to get to a movie theater. Now, a lot of those theaters are gone, especially once the multiplexes came along. But if you live in Westwood, if you're from Westwood, where's the movie theater? It's right in the middle of town. If you're from Ridgewood, even though now it's a multiplex, it used to be just one big theater, where is the theater in Ridgewood? Right in the center of town. If you're from North Arlington, the old Arlington Theater was right there in the middle of town, where anyone could have walked 6 or 8 blocks and gotten to the theater. Okay, and that's the way it was. And there were several other smaller theaters that, of course, no longer exist now, but that were very active. And then, of course, came television. So 90 million tickets a week in 1946. By 1950, it was 60 million tickets a week. By 1955, it was 46 million tickets a week. So television in 9 years, from 1946 to cut ticket sales in half. So, of course, the movies had to get bigger and better. And that's the next clip I show you, where you see a clip of a movie that's one of the 20 most popular movies of all time. I mean, its box office is tremendous. And it's of course, it's escaping me right now, the title of the film. But anyway, Ben-Hur. And you're watching the Great Chariot scene. And of course, as you see, what Hollywood had to do in order to make money, you had to spend money. And so movies were now bigger and better. Sound, color, everything was much bigger than it ever had before. But what's more is you also had something else happening. As we talked about the baby boom. Well, now you have that whole dinner in a movie, where this was now an event. Instead of it being something in the 1940s that you did 3 or 4 times a week, now getting out of the house, away from the TV and away from the kids, as we were in the midst of the baby boom, going out, having dinner, and then going to a movie theater and seeing one of these big, huge movies, these spectaculars that in the 50s, and some of the biggest box office hits of all time. When you talk about Ben-Hur or The Sound of Music or Dr. Zhivago, West Side Story, these were all huge productions. And it would bring people back to the theater. Even if it was only like once a week, it would still bring them back into the theater even for that. So this is how the movie survived. Now, the only time we've actually seen something that's going to trip up the movies, that's, of course, what happened this past November. Now, I've been talking about this for years. But it looks like we finally may have it happen. And what I'm talking about is what happened this past November with Netflix and their movie, The Irishman, where it was out in theaters only for about 3 weeks. And then it was immediately available on Netflix. And you know, a lot of people did not go to the theater, pay $16 for a ticket, spend $8.50 on a small popcorn, $9 on a small Pepsi, and go into the theater. No, they waited for it at home. And I'm wondering, we've talked about this in class before, I'm wondering how long it's going to take before the movie studios and the movie theater companies start fracturing their relationship to where movie studios will now go directly to streaming. It's going to be interesting to watch. All right. So, your quiz is attached. You also got to get those research papers in. And hopefully I'll see them by Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Just email them to me. All right, Com-101. We'll see you next week.